Alright, now that we've created our sheet metal layout sketch, we're going to move on and start creating our actual technical drawing. Now, you're going to need to have this still, so you're going to set this aside. And if you haven't created your sketch yet, go through and watch the video based on figuring out your sheet metal sketch. It's an important video so that you can understand your hems and tabs, as well as how to create this so that it'll make it easier for your technical drawing. So I'm going to set this aside. And I've taped down my paper only because I want to make it easier during this video. But when you're doing this, you don't have to tape it down, and it's very simple to do. What we're going to do first is we're going to create this crosshair that we did on our sketch. All right, and it's very simple. All we have to do is a little bit of measuring, and we're going to start from left to right. If we did this properly, it's a 1/2 inch border on each side, so that's 1 inch, and we know this is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, so that means this is 11 inches long. So if we did this accurately, we should be left with 10 inches between the left and right border. So that's what we're going to base that off of, and if we want the center piece, we're going to measure 5 inches, and we're going to do this up here, near the top. Again, very light. This is all extremely like construction lines or guidelines. And we will not be drawing any dark lines for a while. So take your time here and do not draw dark lines. You want it to be as light as you possibly can. So here, again, if you're not sure how, take your pencil and just hold it by the eraser or the end of your pencil, and all you're going to do is draw a very light line. Don't go over the borders, because that's actually going to make things difficult for you in the future. The lighter the lines, the better it's going to be. All you're going to be utilizing them for is a couple times, and then you don't want to actually be able to see them. If they are too dark, you will have to erase them. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing, but now from the top of our title block to the top of our border. And to do this, it's very simple. All we're going to do is measure, and that puts us at 7 1/8. Now, if we have 7 1/8 inches, the way that we find half of that, if we're looking right here, 7 1/8 inches, it's easy if we break it down. We know that half of 7 is 3 1/2, and we know that half of 1/8, because we double the bottom, is 1/16. All we have to do is convert the half into sixteenths, which half of 16 is 8. So this would be 3 8/16 plus 1/16, which is going to give you 3 9/16. So that's our center point. So again, you're going to want to make sure that you start not at the end of the ruler, but you want to start on a whole number, and then it's very simply 1, 2, 3, and then 9/16, which is generally one line over your 1/2 inch marking. Now that can change based on if your ruler goes to 32nds, 64ths, or just 16ths. So make sure you understand that you look and see, because each ruler will show you what the dimensions inside the lines are for you, what the actual inch is broken down into. So this one's down at 16, so it's one line over the 1/2 inch mark. And then I go to the other side and I do the same thing again. 1, 2, 3, and 9/16. And I'm going to go back and I'm just going to connect those two dots. Again, very light line. Don't really want to see it very much. And that's where we're going to start. Now, again, you're going to need to have your sketch that we created in the other video. So again, if you haven't done that, please go do that now. Alright, so going back to this sketch here, we know that we already have this crosshair right here, which is the center of our paper. We want this to be centered on our piece, and we have already created it into 1/2 scale. Now, because of that, we're going to put down here real quick 1/2, and make sure we have our inch markings, to 1 inch. And that's all you're going to need to use for your scale. That way everybody who looks at this drawing will understand that this is a 1/2 to 1 inch scale drawing. Alright, so now that we've done this, we're going to start with our bottom. The same way we started on our sketch, we're going to always start with our bottom because that is our center piece. Now, if this is our center and we are drawing this in half scale, so this is our dimension, 2 inches from here to here, we are going to start by measuring from the center line over, which means that from here to here, we are at 1 inch. So what we're going to do, we're going to go back to our drawing now, and we are going to measure on each side. So we're going to line this up, and I'm using the 6 to line up directly on my center line here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure an inch over to the right, and then I'm going to measure an inch over to the left. And then I'm going to do the same thing at the top. Again, you want to not go over the borders, so do it a little bit in from there. Inch, inch. Alright, then all you're going to do, again, very nice light line. Don't want to do anything crazy or dark because you don't want to have to erase it later on. So the lighter as you can, the lighter the better. Like so. Then you're going to do the exact same thing, going from your horizontal line up and down 1 inch, doing the exact same thing we just did. So you're going to line it up. I'm using the 6-inch marking. So I'm just going to put that down right there and right here. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side, making sure as accurate as you possibly can. Because if it's not accurate, you will see it in the end of this drawing. It'll be very apparent. Alright, we've now created our bottom, and it's very light and it's going to be hard to see, and that's what you want. You don't want it very dark just yet. And we're going to continue on. So now if we go over to our sketch again, we have now created this part right here. It's all done. Now what we're going to concentrate on is the sides themselves. Nothing else, just the sides. We're not going to worry about the hems or the tabs just yet. So now with those sides, we know that in half scale they are 1 inch. Now we don't have to do any more halving because we're already past doing it on the center. So all we have to do is measure from 1 inch from the side of each of the parts of the bottom. So again, we're going to line up our inch marking. Now you can do this again by measuring an inch on this side, and then if you want to save time, on this side as well. Because on both sides of the bottom, you have to have a side. You're going to do the same thing on top. Like so. Now you are left with what looks like many squares. We're going to do the same thing going from these two lines right here, the edge of the side on the top, and same down here. Just doing the exact same thing we just did. And then, once again, connect your lines. Trying to be as accurate as you possibly can. We don't want squiggles, we don't want dark lines. And there's that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to add in all of our hems. So that's the next thing we're going to work on, is these right here. So those hems are originally 1/4 of an inch, but in half scale we're going to draw them as 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to go back to this, and on the edge of each of those lines that we just drew, we're going to do another 1/8 inch line. And again, you can do both sides at once, or we'll just go through and just worry about one side at a time. Either way will work. You have to be comfortable with it. So I'm going to make my 1/8 of an inch marking there, and another 1/8 of an inch from this side. I'm going to come down and I'm going to do the exact same thing. 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch. And I'm going to take care of those two lines now. Again, very light, because we're only going to be needing these for a little bit longer, and then we'll start darkening them in and coming up with the actual layout. And then we're going to do the exact same thing that we just did to the sides here. We're going to do it to the top and bottom lines. So again, extremely accurate. Making sure that you're on the correct line. Like so. You should have now this little skinny rectangles on the outside of all of your lines. The last thing we're going to do is we're going to create our tabs. Tabs are pretty simple. All you're going to be looking for is, so find your bottom, which is right here, these 4 squares, and then you're going to look for the edges of your sides, which is right here. And you're going to decide which side you're going to put it on. I'm going to put it on this side right here. So I'm going to measure down, and again, our tabs are 3/4 of an inch usually, and in half scale, they are 3/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be measuring from the sides of our side 3/8 of an inch up, and then 3/8 of an inch down. So now I have a mark here and a mark here, because this is the edges of my side. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. 3/8, 3/8. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go through, and you are not going to connect the dots all the way, because you don't need it to go through your entire thing, and you don't want to have extra. So you're just going to do a little line right here, like so. It's just a small little light line inside there, and it's just because that is the actual top of your tabs. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create all of our angles, and the angles are very easy to do as long as you are very accurate with your drawing. So if we're looking at a 45-degree angle, we are going to start off with thinking about a square. Square has 4 90-degree angles, and all sides are equal. So this means that if I connect one corner to another corner, and I connect those, I am bisecting that angle, and instead of a 90, I am now left with 45 degrees. So if you can try and find a good squares on your technical drawing, you'll always be able to create a 45-degree angle very easily. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create that right here. Now, we have squares all over the place. That's how these are made. So all you have to do is find the square right here, and we're going to start with our tab on the inside. So we're going to connect this corner to this corner, and we're just going to draw a line, a very light line, from out here and stop at that corner. And then we're going to turn that, and we're going to connect these other lines and do the same thing. We don't need a very long line for these, but you do want them to be nice and light. So there you go. It's a little bit hard to see, and that's kind of what you want. But if you look, now we have an angle for our tab, and we also have an angle for our hem. Now we have our 45s all set up, and we can continue on. So go through, and you are going to finish up all of your angles. And that's it. We've now finished the rough layout utilizing guidelines, or also called construction lines. Again, super light, and what we're going to do now is we're going to start going through and creating our object lines. Now, we don't want to just do the same operations that we just did with starting with your bottom, darkening those, and then do these, because we want them to all be singular object lines. Remember, single stroke, crisp, clean lines. That's what we learned in DDP. That's what we're doing here. So instead, we want to try and do the whole line at once. Now, here is the corner of this side where the hem comes in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start there, right at that corner. We're going to go down to the other corner down here. And we're going to create a single, crisp, clean, dark line. Now you can start there, you can start out here, again making sure that you're looking at what you want to connect. In this case, over at the hem, it's going to be from the insides of the angles, and then over here, for the next vertical line, it's corner to corner, like so, and then we already did this one, and then it's the same thing on this other side. Don't overthink this, but just try and be accurate. Save yourself a lot of erasing. The reason we do very light lines and then we turn into dark lines is because dark lines are extremely difficult to erase. And a technical drawing is meant to be extremely clean, very easy to read, without a lot of smudges or anything else. So if you're getting smudges, it's probably because you're using a very soft leaded pencil, or it could be that your ruler could be dirty. Alright, so then you're going to do the exact same thing on the bottom, going up or starting at the top and going down, up to you, making sure that you take your time with each of the lines. Alright, now that that's been created, The next thing is to finish our hems with our angles right here, and then also create our tabs. And you'll see that the tabs have a little bit of a plateau right here, a flat spot, and we want that generally. There are some occasions where that's not going to be possible, especially with a 1-inch side or things like that. But in general, we don't want to have a little point in our box. A, it's very sharp, and also B, it tends to cause issues when you're trying to assemble the box. So you can go through, and we'll start off with these tabs, and all you're going to do is make a line from one of the angles to the other, like so. Do that top and bottom. This is a good place to start. Again, just connecting one angle to the other to create that flat spot for our tabs. The next thing is we can start darkening in our angles. And you want to do these all at once, as it will make it a little bit more simple. So you're going to go through, create one angle, and then here's your tab and your hem. Then you can go ahead and do the other side of this angle, of this tab. Again, making sure you're very accurate and stopping before you get into the box. And then you can go to the other side. And just rinse and repeat for each of the different tabs and hems. And this should be what you're left with. At this time, if your lines on the outside are super dark, you're going to want to start erasing them. If they're very light like this, and they're there but they're not very prevalent, or they're a little harder to see, that's kind of what you want to leave. So leave those exactly like that, and then we can move on to the next step. In the next video, we'll go through on how to create dimensions, and how to properly create each of the extension lines, as well as what to write in on them.